It's late one Friday afternoon, and it's about time for you to call it a week. Then your project manager calls. They explain that they misread the code, and now every door needs an adjustment for their fire rating. That's 200 doors that you have to go and update when you could be enjoying your afternoon and getting your weekend started. This sounds like hours of work, but with global parameters, what takes hours can be done in minutes. Stick around, because once you see how this works, you'll never go back. A global parameter in Revit is a project-specific variable that controls multiple dimensions or instance parameters from a single location. They enable parametric design by linking elements, driving consistent geometric or spacing, and supporting formulas or reporting values for schedules. They live within the project file and are not reusable like shared parameters. Global parameters are the ultimate quality assurance tool. It's a centralized single point control, so if you adjust the parameter for one family type, it's going to update it for all the family types that are associated with it. This enforces consistency across your entire project, and it's great for standards that your firm has set or building code has dictated. This is really a powerful tool, not only for doors, but from everything from casework to curtain wall alignments. Let's see how global parameters work within the Revit user interface. Go to the Manage tab. Under Settings, hover over the little global parameters icon. Once you click that, you can see we have a few of these set up already. As you can see, more advanced teams are already using this and are controlling a lot of the different geometries and parametric definition with global parameters. You'll see that we can search for certain parameters at the top here. At the bottom, we have a lot of the same icons that we're used to looking at. So the pencil is for edit. This icon is to create a new global parameter. This is to delete a global parameter. And then these next buttons here, they allow you to shift the location of the global parameter. It also allows you to sort their parameters alphabetically. Now it's time to deal with the door fire rating issue. Let's go ahead and create a new global parameter. And let's go ahead and name it fire rating. And then let's create one for unit doors. You can set discipline, adjust the data type. So since we're doing a text-based parameter, let's go ahead and change that. And then let's go ahead and match how we've done it in the past and group it under fire protection. You can edit the text tip here. Then click OK. And you'll notice now under the fire protection group, we have our new global parameter. So this works very similarly. We can add a value here. Let's say 60 minutes for our unit doors, so the actual condo unit doors, and then click OK. If we click on one of these unit doors, we can go down and see fire protection. We don't actually have any value right now set for this parameter. So we could come in here and say 60 minutes, but that is a pretty non-dynamic parameter input here. So if we want to associate this parameter with that global parameter, we'll go ahead and click this small little rectangle all the way to the right. Once you hover over it, you'll notice it says Associate Global Parameter. Go ahead and click on that. And then you'll notice within the list here, it says BD Fire Rating Unit Doors. So let's click OK. And then now you'll notice that the entire parameter is grayed out, and that's because it's being controlled by that global parameter. Let's go back to Manage Global Parameters. And let's say we needed to change this now to a 75-minute door. Let's click OK. And now you notice, since we set up our parameters with shared parameters, in this tag, it now says 75 minutes. The parameter says 75 minutes. And then even in our door schedule, we have 75 minutes. So let's go ahead and play this out across the larger project scale and set all of our unit doors to be associated with this global parameter. So now we can see that all of these doors for the units, they're all associated with this. And if we want, we can go ahead and change that in our global parameters again. Let's go ahead and set it back to 60 minutes. Now we're changed again in our tags and in our schedule. Now let's go ahead and play this across all of our different door types throughout the project, just to show you how easily we can start to affect our model and properly document things within just a couple minutes. Another way to create a new global parameter, if you click on the Associate Parameter button, you'll notice that you have the option to create a new global parameter. So now that we have the majority of our doors associated with that global parameter, let's go ahead and see how this can get scaled across our door schedule. You'll see that a fair amount are filled out from the other global parameters, but let's go ahead and push this out across the project. Go back to Manage tab, Global Parameters. So I've entered in for the different options we have, and you can create as many as you need for your projects, the realities of your building code. I just added a few here just to show the example. So we have our condo unit doors, our exterior doors, interior non-rated doors, and then stair doors. So I've added a value for each of these. Let's click OK. Now you see a ton of these got populated that are associated. So it looks like we missed a few doors when we were going through, but that's okay. We can kind of go through and clean that up as we go. Again, now we can see that, so many of these doors are now controlled by just 4 different parameters. So as you can see, when I was going through that, there was loads of different doors. So for example, the interior doors, we probably have 10 different family types, different families, different door types, different dimension sizes that we're using for our interior doors. It's always going to be not rated in a lot of those conditions. So really what a global parameter is allowing us to do is to span across families to really link all of those common characteristics and values together. For our unit doors, let's say we have a situation where those can go down to 45 minutes. Click OK. And now we'll see really quickly, this could have adjusted, 5 different family types. It was done within a single parameter change. You probably also noticed when we were going through here, we had to actually go in and edit a lot of the families individually just to kind of give it that shared parameter. The BIM Depot door families and really all of our families, we have all of those set up with our shared parameters already. So this is something that's going to be ready for you on day one. You're not going to have to go into each of these and modify kind of the structure of the door families that you're using. Let's start to see how we can use global parameters to control dimensions. You'll notice that within our global parameters, we have a lot of different dimension controls here. One of them is the door wall offset. So let's say we wanted these 2 doors to always be offset the same exact distance from this wall. So if we add a dimension here and we move the wall, we'll notice that the dimension string changes accordingly and the walls do not move at all. If we click on these dimensions and then in the properties dialog box under label, let's go ahead and associate that label with the door wall offset parameter. Now you'll notice that it switches to 9 inches, which comes directly from our door wall offset. So if we change it in our global parameters, it's going to now change in this dimension string and then subsequently the actual element that we're dimensioning to. Now, if we drag this wall to move it, you'll notice that this dimension always stays consistent and our doors follow. This is really a great way to have consistency across our model. So if you went and set this up with every door and wall that you wanted this relationship with, you're going to have that consistency, whether you're moving these walls or changing the actual parameter value within your global parameters. If you don't want to see these dimension strings within the model space, you can go ahead and delete them. You'll get this pop-up stating that it's going to still constrain that dimension string unless you click unconstrain. Let's go ahead and click OK to keep the constraint. And you'll notice that if we move this wall again, the doors are still going to follow and hold that same relationship. And then same holds true if we change the global parameter value. You'll notice that same relationship is held. So if you want to reveal those constraints after you've essentially deleted them, at the bottom of the user interface here in Revit, you'll see a button that says Reveal Constraints. Click on that, and then you'll see this dark red dimension and then trim surrounding frame around your view. It says Reveal Constraints. And you'll notice that our door wall offset parameter is now showing up here as like a hidden constraint. So if we go back and change this again, click Apply, you'll notice that that's actually what's driving it still. Even though it was deleted in our view, it's still acting as a controlling element within that model. If you want to completely get rid of this, you can select and click delete, and that will remove that association with those dimensions and doors. You can see this can be really powerful, not only just for this simple example here, you could also set it up to meet ADA standards. So your accessibility, always wanting that 1'6", you could create a new label. Click OK, and then that way, if that wall ever does move, you can be assured that that 1'6" dimension that we're required to have for accessibility, that's going to be held. So it's a great quality assurance tool. And then, it's something that if whatever dimension it is changes, you can make that change in one location and then have it reflected across all the elements that you've associated it with. Another great dimensional global parameter that you can use that's highly valuable is for ceiling heights and just other heights in general related to elevations. You'll notice here that we have a bunch of ceilings within these studio units that are pretty inconsistent, so 8'7", 9'2", and so on. In reality, we probably want all of these ceiling heights within the units to be the same. So let's go ahead and select all of our ceilings, and then deselect the one in the corridor. So now that we have all of these selected, you'll see here within the properties dialog box for our ceilings, you'll see height offset from level. Right now it says varies because they're all different heights. If we click on the small rectangle again that says associate global parameters, we'll see that we have the option to click on ceiling height 1, click OK, and then we'll notice that all of our ceiling heights now say 10 feet. That 10 feet is coming directly from our global parameter that we associated it with. So let's go ahead and change this to 9 foot. Click apply, and you'll notice that we now changed to 9 foot within our actual model space. And again, that's something that's consistent with all the ceilings that we associated that global parameter with. And then in the corridor, we may want this to be a separate height. We can then repeat that same process, except this time let's associate it with height number 2. Again, you'll see that it changed. We can modify this to be whatever we want it to be. And then this becomes really helpful because we likely want all of the corridor ceilings across the floors, across the project to be the same height. So you can essentially just associate all of those, even though they're not in the same view. You can make that change within the global parameters, and then that change will get reflected across the model, even though you're not actively in that view. Another handy thing here too, we have these set up pretty generically. So right now it's ceiling height number 2. You can come in and modify that to then say corridor, and then modify height number 1 to be unit. And then that way it's really clear to everyone within the project that, we are associating this with the unit ceiling height and not just like the generic number 1. Global parameters aren't just limited to dimensions and different text parameters. You can really do this with any parameter that Revit has to offer. Another great instance to use global parameters is for your millwork and hardware. A lot of times you'll have millwork or casework in Revit that varies from upper and lower, and then also in dimensions. So that naturally just leads to a lot of different family types being created. The issue with that is that there's no real consistent way to have control over those family types without getting global parameters involved. Once you have these global parameters set up, you can actually start to associate all your materials with these global parameters, and then you can ensure that every single piece of millwork within your project is using that same exact material. So we have consistency in the aesthetic of the project. Let's talk about some of the pros and cons of global parameters. To start with the pros, you can have one input control multiple dimensions across family types. This will get reflected if used with shared parameters in both your tags and your schedule. It keeps geometry consistent when you have different family types, but you want consistent values across those family types. And they can use formulas for smart and dynamic relationships. The cons for global parameters, they're only live inside one project, so they're not reusable like shared parameters. They cannot be scheduled or tagged directly, although they can be paired with shared parameters, so there is a way around that. Best practices for using global parameters, you should use them for repeated parameter values like dimensions and text. This will ensure that if that value has to get revised for whatever reason, it's something that is only controlled in one location and you're not worrying about hunting down each spot that it's shown. We always advise to keep your naming convention clear and intuitive, especially for larger teams and for people that are coming new onto the project. Global parameters are not really meant to replace other parameter types, so combine them with your shared parameters and your project parameters for really dynamic data and documentation workflows. We also advocate for avoiding to overload with too many global parameters. Just keep them simple and strategic. At BIM Depot, our templates and families are designed with parameter consistency in mind. That means when you use them, you can combine global, project, and shared parameters seamlessly without having to fight with Revit. If you learned something new, please go ahead and like the video. Please also comment and tell us what you learned and liked about the video. Go ahead and click subscribe to see the other videos within this series. That's the last part of our parameter series: projects, shared, and global parameters in Revit. Master these three and you'll unlock the full power of Revit. Check out our other videos for more time-saving workflows, and grab the families and templates at bim-depot.com to take your projects to the next level.